The classroom was buzzing with the usual chatter and laughter, but for Maya, the room felt colder than usual. She shifted in her seat, clutching her notebook tightly, unsure if she should say what was on her mind. Ever since she had told a few classmates about her mom being a SEAL, the whispers had started. At first, she thought they were impressed, but the laughter that followed made her stomach twist. Teachers barely noticed, absorbed in their lessons, while some students stared, smirking behind their hands. Maya kept her head down, wishing she could disappear into the worn wooden floor of the classroom. During lunch, she tried to speak about her day with her best friend, Lily. "Mom told me today about her training exercise," Maya said softly, her voice almost trembling. Lily's eyes widened in curiosity. "Wow, really? That's amazing," she whispered. But before Maya could continue, a group of older kids passed by and overheard. One of them, a tall boy with a crooked smile, laughed loudly. "What? Your mom's a what?" he jeered. His friends snickered, echoing his words. Maya's face burned red, and Lily tried to shield her with a hand, but it didn't stop the laughter. The mocking words hit harder than any physical blow could. She wanted to run, to escape, but her feet felt rooted to the floor, paralyzed by fear and humiliation. By the end of the day, the ridicule had followed her through the hallways and even onto the school bus. Some students whispered cruel jokes, while others stared with wide eyes, unsure if she was lying. Maya's mind raced, wondering if they would ever believe her. She clenched her fists, trying to summon the courage to speak up again, but the laughter echoed in her ears, making her doubt herself. When she reached home, she flung open the front door and ran to her room, slamming it shut behind her. The familiar walls of her room offered little comfort, and she sank onto her bed, hugging her knees. Her mother, Commander Elena Mitchell, walked into the room quietly, sensing something was wrong. Maya's eyes met hers, brimming with tears. "They don't believe me, Mom," she whispered. "They laughed at me, they think I'm lying." Elena knelt beside her daughter, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Her calm presence was always reassuring, but today, it carried a weight Maya had never felt before. "People will always doubt things they don't understand," Elena said softly. "But that doesn't make it any less true." Maya sniffled, unsure if those words could erase the sting of embarrassment, but the warmth of her mother's hand reminded her that she wasn't alone. Later that evening, the mocking continued in ways she couldn't control. Social media posts appeared, memes made by classmates, mocking her claim about her mom. Her phone buzzed nonstop with messages filled with laughter, disbelief, and cruelty. Each notification felt like another jab to her heart. Maya tried to ignore it, but every ping made her flinch. She had shared a piece of her life, something real and extraordinary, only to see it twisted into a joke. Her room, once a sanctuary, now felt like a cage. She felt the weight of loneliness pressing down, a heavy reminder that the world outside often misunderstood or dismissed the truth. The next morning, the tension followed her like a shadow. Walking to school, Maya noticed the stares of people she didn't even know. Every glance felt like a judgment, every whisper a confirmation of her shame. In class, she tried to focus on the lesson, but the memories of the previous day's humiliation clung to her mind. When the teacher called on her to answer a question, her voice barely rose above a whisper. The words faltered, and a few students snickered under their breath. The room seemed smaller, the air heavier, as if the walls themselves were pressing down. Maya's fingers twisted the edge of her notebook, trying to anchor herself, but the doubt gnawed at her. During lunch, the cafeteria felt like a battlefield. She and Lily found a quiet corner, away from the crowd, but even there, whispers reached them. "She's lying," someone muttered, loud enough for them to hear. Maya's heart sank. She wanted to defend herself, to shout the truth, but the words stuck in her throat. Her hands trembled, and her vision blurred with tears. Lily squeezed her hand. "Don't let them win," she said softly. But Maya didn't feel strong enough. She wished her mom was there, not just as a comforting presence at home, but here, to show everyone the truth. Back at home that evening, Maya's frustration bubbled over. She stormed into the living room where her mother was reviewing training plans on a tablet. "Why doesn't anyone believe me?" she demanded, her voice cracking. "They laugh at me every day. They think I'm lying." Elena looked up, her eyes calm but sharp. "Because the world isn't ready for the truth yet," she said. "Sometimes people need proof, something undeniable, to open their eyes. And when they see it, they'll understand." Maya stared at her, searching for answers. She wanted to believe her mother, but the sting of rejection made it hard. That night, Maya lay in bed, the events of the day replaying over and over. The laughter, the whispers, the social media posts, all of it intertwined into a storm in her mind. She wondered if she would ever be believed, or if she would always be the girl whose story was too big for others to accept. Her mother's words echoed in her mind, though, offering a faint glimmer of hope. "Truth has a way of showing itself," Elena had said. But Maya didn't know when, or how. All she knew was that the mockery wouldn't stop, and the world outside her room remained a place where she felt small and unheard. The following day, a knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Maya opened it cautiously, expecting another note from a classmate or maybe a delivery. Instead, she saw two uniformed police officers standing in the hallway. Their expressions were unreadable, serious, and professional. "We need to speak with you," one of them said. Maya's stomach dropped. She had no idea why they were here, and a cold wave of fear washed over her. Was this about the mockery? Was it about her mother? Questions raced through her mind, each more terrifying than the last. The officers followed her into the living room, where Elena was waiting, calm but alert. "What is this about?" Maya asked, her voice barely steady. The taller officer cleared his throat. "We've received reports about your statements regarding your mother." Maya's heart pounded. She wanted to speak, to tell them the truth, but the words felt trapped inside her. Elena's gaze was steady, reassuring, but there was tension in the room that Maya had never felt before. Something was happening, something she couldn't yet understand, and for the first time, the fear of disbelief mingled with the fear of danger. As the officers questioned her, Maya realized the room felt smaller, the walls closer. Her mother remained quiet, her presence a shield, but the tension in the air was electric. Every glance, every pause, every word from the officers made her pulse race. The ridicule she had faced at school seemed distant now, replaced by a new, unfamiliar threat. Maya had no idea what would happen next, and the suspense gnawed at her, making her feel both anxious and powerless. She could only hope that the truth she had carried for so long would finally be seen, and that the person she believed in the most, her mother, would find a way to show everyone what was real. The mocking may have hurt, but the events unfolding now carried a weight far greater than laughter. Something was coming, something that would change everything, and Maya had no choice but to wait and watch, her heart pounding in her chest. The night settled in, but sleep did not come easily. Maya lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking of the whispers, the laughs, and now the officers at her door. The suspense of the unknown pressed on her, making every small noise in the house seem magnified. What did they want? Why were they here? And most importantly, what would happen when the truth finally came out? She didn't know, but she felt a mix of fear, anticipation, and a strange flicker of hope. Tomorrow would bring answers, or more questions, and she would have to face it all. The morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting thin lines across Maya's bedroom floor, but the light did little to chase away the tension that had settled in her chest. She moved slowly, her thoughts still tangled with the events from the day before. The memory of the police officers at her door haunted her, their serious expressions, the way they had spoken as if her very words could cause trouble. Every sound in the quiet house seemed louder, sharper, and her nerves were taut, like a bowstring ready to snap. Maya's mother, Elena, had already left for her early training session, leaving behind a note that simply read, "Stay calm. Don't respond until you understand what's happening." Maya read it over and over, trying to make sense of the vague instructions. But calm felt impossible. The ridicule at school was still fresh, and now the police had appeared, their presence like a shadow pressing down on her small shoulders. The thought of walking into another day, possibly facing more judgment or disbelief, made her stomach twist. By the time she reached school, the hallway was alive with the usual chaos, but Maya felt strangely detached. Whispers followed her like tiny echoes of the previous day's humiliation. Some students snickered when they passed, and she caught snippets of cruel jokes. But beneath the familiar sting of mockery was something new, an unfamiliar tension, as if the air itself had shifted. Her classmates weren't just laughing, they were cautious, almost as if they had noticed a change in her, though Maya couldn't tell what it was. In class, the teacher's voice droned on, but Maya's attention was fractured. She kept replaying the police visit in her mind, the questions asked, the weight behind their eyes. She could feel the invisible pressure mounting. When the teacher called on her to answer a question, Maya's words trembled. The response came out half-formed, weak, and uncertain. Some students snickered again, and her face burned with embarrassment. It was impossible to escape the feeling that the world around her had suddenly become more intimidating, more unpredictable. During lunch, Maya tried to focus on her food, but she couldn't. Every glance seemed charged with curiosity or judgment. Lily sat beside her, offering quiet support, but even her best friend seemed slightly nervous, as if sensing the storm on the horizon. "Maya, do you think, the police, are really here for you?" Lily asked softly. Maya shook her head, trying to appear confident, but inside, her anxiety was growing. She didn't know. Every scenario in her mind felt worse than the last. The ridicule at school had been painful, yes, but this felt different. Dangerous. Back home that afternoon, Maya paced her room like a caged animal. The silence of the house was heavy, and her imagination raced. Every knock at the door, every creak in the floorboards, made her heart jump. When Elena returned, her presence was both comforting and intimidating. The calm authority that her mother carried made Maya feel safe, yet it also reminded her that the truth she had carried for so long was powerful, far stronger than the mockery she had endured. "Mom," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper, "what if they don't believe me? What if they think I'm lying again?" Elena's eyes softened but remained firm. "Maya, people often fear what they don't understand. That's why they mock. That's why they doubt. But truth doesn't need everyone to believe it. It just needs to be revealed at the right moment." Maya wanted to cling to those words, to feel relief, but the tension in her chest refused to loosen. She felt small, insignificant, and powerless, even as she sat beside the strongest person she had ever known. As night fell, the weight of the day pressed down. Maya couldn't sleep, and the fear gnawed at her like a persistent shadow. She imagined the officers returning, knocking on the door, searching for evidence or confirmation of her claims. What would happen if they didn't find anything? Would they turn against her, accuse her of lying? The uncertainty was suffocating. Each imagined scenario felt real, and each one sent her pulse racing. The next morning, the tension escalated further. 2 police officers were waiting outside her school when she arrived. Their presence was silent but commanding, and the students noticed immediately. Whispers spread like wildfire. Maya's stomach churned, and her hands shook slightly. The officers made no attempt to hide their purpose, they were clearly here for her. The familiar mockery of her classmates suddenly seemed trivial compared to the weight of this new, looming authority. One officer approached her quietly, motioning for her to follow. Maya's heart pounded so hard she feared it might be heard. Her mind raced with questions and worst-case scenarios. Where were they taking her? Would anyone believe the truth? Was this going to get her or her mother in trouble? Every step she took felt heavy, laden with anticipation and fear. At the station, the officers questioned her methodically. Maya answered as best she could, but the questions seemed to twist and turn in ways that left her unsure of herself. They were polite, yet firm, their expressions unreadable. She noticed the subtle glance exchanged between them, as if they were sharing a silent understanding. Something was not right. This wasn't just about disbelief anymore, it felt strategic, deliberate, as if a larger plan was in motion, something beyond her understanding. Meanwhile, back at school, rumors spread like wildfire. Students speculated about why the police had been involved. Some whispered about secrets and danger, while others laughed nervously, unsure what to believe. Maya's reputation had shifted from a subject of ridicule to a subject of fear and curiosity. The whispers no longer made her feel small, instead, they made her more aware of the storm that was brewing, a storm she could not yet control. By the evening, Maya returned home exhausted, mentally drained from the questioning and the suspense. Elena sat across from her, calm and composed, her hands folded neatly on the table. "Did they scare you?" she asked softly. Maya shook her head, though her hands trembled slightly. "Not exactly, but I don't understand why they're here, Mom. What do they want?" Elena leaned closer, her voice low and steady. "They're testing you, Maya. Testing the truth. They want proof, certainty. And soon, they'll get it. But you must stay strong, and you must be patient. The right moment will come." Maya wanted to believe her mother, but patience was difficult when fear and uncertainty gnawed at her from every angle. The officer's visit, the whispers at school, the tension at home, it all combined into a storm of doubt and worry. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a tiny spark of hope remained. A hope that the truth she had carried, the secret she had believed in, was stronger than the ridicule and fear surrounding her. That night, Maya lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking of the coming days. She felt the shadow of the officer's presence and the weight of the whispers pressing down on her. She didn't know what would happen next, but she knew that something big was coming, something that would change everything she thought she knew about herself, her mother, and the people around her. The suspense of the unknown pressed on her like a physical force, making her pulse quicken. She realized she had two choices: let fear control her, or trust in the strength of her mother and the truth she carried. And for the first time, Maya understood that patience, courage, and belief might be her only weapons against the storm that was gathering. The mockery and doubt had pushed her to the edge, but what lay ahead was bigger, stranger, and far more dangerous. She closed her eyes, bracing herself for the challenges to come, knowing that the coming days would test her in ways she had never imagined. The morning air was cool and still, but Maya felt a storm brewing inside her. Sleep had been shallow, filled with restless thoughts of the police officers, the whispers at school, and the growing uncertainty surrounding her life. Each sound in the house seemed louder, sharper, echoing with tension. The secret she had carried for so long, her mother's true identity, had always been hers alone. But now, it felt as if the world was closing in, demanding answers before she was ready. Elena entered the kitchen, moving with the calm, measured steps that always commanded attention. She noticed Maya's eyes, wide with fear and curiosity. "Maya," she said softly, "it's time you know everything. No more half-truths, no more doubts. You deserve to understand who you are and who your family is." Maya swallowed hard, her heart hammering. She had always suspected that her mother's stories were more than just tales, but hearing those words out loud sent a shiver down her spine. Elena gestured for Maya to sit at the table. "For years, I've served in the Navy as a SEAL," she began. "I've trained, fought, and completed missions that most people couldn't even imagine. It's been my life, and it's why we've always had to be careful about what we share. I didn't tell you before because I wanted you to grow up safely, without fear. But now, circumstances have forced the truth into the open." Maya felt her breath catch in her throat. The word SEAL, spoken so calmly and proudly by her mother, hit her like a shockwave. All the ridicule, all the doubt she had faced, suddenly made sense. Her classmates' laughter, the mockery, it wasn't because she was lying. It was because the truth was far stranger than anyone could imagine. She wanted to leap across the table and hug her mother, but a mixture of awe and fear froze her in place. Elena continued, her voice steady but carrying the weight of experience. "The officers who came to the house, they don't know me personally. They've only seen the reports. They're testing the credibility of what they've heard. And that's why it's important you understand, when the truth comes out, it will be undeniable. And you will be part of that truth. Maya's mind spun. Part of the truth? How could she be involved? She had only ever been a child, struggling to be believed, facing mockery and doubt. For the first time, Maya felt a mixture of fear and pride. The fear came from the unknown, what would happen when the world finally realized the truth. The pride came from knowing that her mother was extraordinary, stronger and braver than anyone she had ever met. The woman who had comforted her after every nightmare, who had taught her courage and patience, was a seal. A real-life hero. Elena leaned closer, her eyes searching Maya's. "You have to promise me something," she said. "No matter what happens, stay calm. Be patient. The right moment to reveal everything will come. Until then, trust me, trust yourself, and trust the truth you carry." Maya nodded, her hands trembling slightly. She had always admired her mother, but now that admiration was mixed with a sense of awe and responsibility she had never felt before. The day passed slowly. Maya moved through her school like a shadow, her mind replaying her mother's words over and over. The whispers and laughter of her classmates seemed distant now, like background noise she no longer needed to fear. She was carrying something bigger, something real, something that would change how everyone saw her. The tension of disbelief, the sting of mockery, all of it seemed to pale in comparison to the weight of the revelation she now held. That afternoon, Elena returned home early. She was quiet at first, but there was a fire in her eyes that Maya had rarely seen. "We need to prepare," Elena said. Maya's heart skipped a beat. "Prepare? For what?" she asked, fear rising again. "For what's coming," her mother replied, her tone firm. "The people who doubted you, the officers, even those who laughed, they are about to see what happens when the truth steps forward. And they won't be able to ignore it." Maya felt a shiver run down her spine. The suspense of the unknown pressed on her chest like a physical weight. She didn't know what her mother meant exactly, or how it would unfold, but the certainty in Elena's voice filled her with both fear and anticipation. For the first time, she realized that the mockery and doubt had been only the beginning. Something far greater, far more powerful, was on its way. That night, Maya lay awake again, her thoughts spinning. She replayed every moment, every laugh, every glance from her classmates, and she began to see them in a new light. None of it mattered anymore. What mattered was the truth, and the truth had been revealed. Her mother was a seal. A real one. And soon, everyone would witness it in ways they could never imagine. As the hours passed, Maya felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. The suspense of the unknown had transformed into anticipation. She no longer felt powerless. Instead, she understood that she and her mother were holding something extraordinary, something that would command respect and awe. The world might doubt now, but soon, that doubt would be shattered. In the quiet of her room, Maya whispered to herself, almost like a promise, "I will stay strong. I will be patient. And when the moment comes, they will see the truth." She felt the tension in her chest ease just slightly, replaced by a spark of courage that had been hidden beneath her fear for so long. Outside, the night carried on in silence, unaware of the storm of truth that was about to break. Maya's journey from ridicule to revelation had begun, and though she could not yet see the path ahead, she knew that change was coming. The suspense of the unknown lingered, but now it was mixed with hope, a hope that the world would finally recognize what she had always known, that her mother was extraordinary, and that the truth, no matter how unbelievable, could not be hidden forever. The next morning, the air outside felt heavier than usual, as if the world itself sensed that something was about to happen. Maya's heart beat faster than ever. She had barely slept, her mind spinning with thoughts of the previous days, the ridicule at school, the police questioning, and the revelation of her mother's true identity. Everything had changed, yet nothing had happened, until now. Elena had been quiet all morning, moving through the house with her usual calm precision, but today there was a different energy about her. Maya noticed it immediately, the slight tightening of her jaw, the measured steps, the focused gaze. It was the same energy she had seen in her mother during her training videos, the energy that commanded attention, that hinted at power beyond ordinary understanding. Maya's stomach twisted with a mix of fear and anticipation. Suddenly, a subtle vibration under the floor made her stop in her tracks. Then came the low hum of engines outside, growing louder by the second. Maya ran to the window and saw a black SUV pulling up to the curb, followed by a van with dark-tinted windows. Her pulse raced. Her mother's team had arrived. The SEALs. Real, highly trained operatives, here in their quiet suburban neighborhood. Maya's breath caught in her throat. She had always known her mother was capable, but seeing her command the arrival of a team of professionals filled her with awe and a flicker of fear she couldn't shake. The front door opened quietly, and Elena's voice cut through the tension. "Stay here," she said calmly, though there was steel in her tone. Maya nodded, unable to speak, her eyes glued to the movements outside. Her mother stepped forward first, followed by the rest of the unit. Each person moved with precision, silent yet commanding, their presence filling the street with an unspoken authority. The neighbors peeked through their windows, some startled, some curious, but no one dared intervene. Inside, Maya crouched behind the couch, her heart hammering. She had seen her mother in action during training drills, but this was different. This was real. The police who had ridiculed her, who had questioned her, were about to meet the reality of Elena Mitchell. And Maya knew, whatever happened next would change everything. Minutes passed like hours. Then the officers from the previous day arrived at the door, unaware of what awaited them. They were professional, serious, and still unaware of the storm about to hit. As they stepped toward the house, Elena's team positioned themselves strategically, each movement deliberate, silent, and precise. Maya could see the tension rising in her chest, each second stretching, building suspense, like the world was holding its breath. When Elena opened the door to face the officers, her calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the storm behind her. The taller officer stepped forward, expecting control, expecting compliance, expecting routine. But he froze, the words caught in his throat, when he saw her. Elena's eyes met his, and for the first time, he realized this was not a woman to be underestimated. Her posture, her presence, the authority in every movement, he had no idea what he was facing. Maya watched silently, hidden, as the world outside shifted in an instant. The officers, who had mocked her, who had doubted her, who had treated her like a child telling tall tales, now stood stunned. Their expressions were a mixture of shock, disbelief, and a dawning fear. Elena didn't move aggressively, didn't yell or threaten. She simply stood there, commanding, powerful, a force that could not be ignored. Her team moved subtly, positioning themselves without noise, without warning, a perfect display of coordination. Every officer's instinct screamed at them to act, to assert control, but they couldn't. They were frozen, paralyzed by the presence of something far beyond what they had expected. Maya's heart raced faster with each passing moment. She realized she had never felt so much pride in her life. Her mother, the woman who had comforted her, protected her, and taught her courage, was unstoppable. Time seemed to slow. The air was thick with anticipation. Even the neighbors had stopped, watching silently, sensing that something extraordinary was unfolding. Maya felt the suspense building like a physical force, pressing in from every direction. This wasn't just about proving her story anymore, this was about showing the world what truth, courage, and skill could look like. Then, without a word, Elena gestured subtly to her team. In a flash, the situation shifted. Officers who had once laughed and ridiculed Maya now understood that they were dealing with something far more serious than a child's claim. The power of truth, of experience, and of authority combined in a way that left no room for doubt. And Maya, watching from her hiding spot, felt a surge of awe and relief. The fear she had carried for days transformed into something new, certainty. The truth was here, and it could not be denied. As the minutes passed, the tension slowly began to resolve, though the suspense remained. Maya knew this was only the beginning. The arrival of her mother and her SEAL team had changed everything, but the real challenge, the real confrontation, was still ahead. And even though fear still lingered in her chest, a stronger emotion had taken root: hope. Hope that the mockery, the ridicule, and the disbelief would finally be met with justice. Hope that the truth she had carried would shine through, unstoppable and undeniable. Maya stepped back from the window, her hands trembling, her mind racing. She had seen her mother in action now, and nothing would ever make her doubt again. Whatever came next, whatever confrontation awaited the officers or anyone who challenged her story, she knew that her mother's strength, skill, and determination would lead the way. And the suspense of the unknown, what would happen in the coming moments, hung over the neighborhood like a heavy, electrified cloud, leaving everyone, including Maya, on edge, waiting for the next move. The tension in the air was thick, almost tangible, as Maya watched from behind the living room couch. Her heart pounded in her chest, echoing in her ears like a drum. Every muscle in her body was tense, and her mind raced with a mix of fear, anticipation, and awe. Outside, the officers had taken cautious steps forward, still trying to assert control, still unaware of the full reality of the situation. Elena stood at the front of the house, her posture unwavering, her eyes sharp and steady. The calm authority she radiated was almost magnetic. The officers hesitated, exchanging glances, their usual confidence shaken by the silent but powerful presence before them. Elena's SEAL team moved silently behind her, ready, prepared, perfectly coordinated, a force that demanded respect without a single word. "Step back," Elena said softly, yet the firmness in her voice left no room for argument. The officers froze, caught between protocol and instinct. It was clear now that they were outmatched, not by numbers, but by skill, precision, and an undeniable authority that radiated from Elena. Maya's stomach twisted with pride and fear. She had never seen her mother like this, so commanding, so powerful, so in control of everything around her. One officer tried to speak, to regain a sense of authority. "Ma'am, we just need to confirm," his words faltered as Elena's gaze locked onto him, calm but unyielding. She didn't raise her voice, didn't move aggressively, but every inch of her presence screamed command. The officer's confidence wavered, then crumbled. The team behind her moved subtly, positioning themselves in a way that left no escape, no room for doubt. Maya watched silently, awestruck. The officers who had mocked her, who had laughed at her claims, were now frozen. Their disbelief had transformed into shock and a dawning realization. This wasn't just a story. This wasn't a lie. This was reality, and reality had arrived in the form of a woman who had trained, fought, and led in ways most people couldn't even imagine. Elena spoke again, her voice measured and precise. "You doubted her. You mocked her. You questioned what you didn't understand. Now you have the proof." Her words hung in the air like a weight, undeniable, impossible to ignore. The officers shifted nervously, recognizing for the first time that their assumptions had been wrong, that their authority had limits, and that they were dealing with a truth far beyond their experience. Maya felt a surge of relief and pride. Tears welled in her eyes as she realized the truth she had carried all these years was finally seen. The fear, the ridicule, the mocking, they had all led to this moment. Her mother, the woman who had always been her protector, had now become a symbol of justice and power in the eyes of everyone present. The confrontation didn't require violence, didn't need shouting or chaos. The mere presence of Elena and her team was enough. The officers understood instinctively that this was a force they could not challenge, that they had underestimated the power of courage, skill, and truth. Maya felt a mixture of awe and gratitude, knowing that her mother had handled it perfectly, with control and precision. After a tense silence, the officers finally stepped back, nodding with a mixture of respect and disbelief. They understood now that their mockery and doubt had been misplaced. Maya emerged from her hiding spot, her legs trembling, her heart still racing. She looked at her mother, who smiled briefly, proud yet calm, and for the first time, Maya felt completely safe, completely seen, and completely understood. Her mother reached down, placing a hand gently on Maya's shoulder. "You see," Elena whispered, "truth has a way of showing itself. Sometimes it comes quietly, sometimes it arrives like a storm. But when it comes, nothing can stop it. Maya nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. She had always believed, even when no one else did, but now the world had seen the proof. The ridicule, the doubt, the fear, all of it had led to this moment of undeniable truth and power. Outside, the neighborhood had watched in silence. Whispers of awe and surprise traveled through the streets. People who had doubted, who had laughed, now understood that this was no ordinary family, no ordinary story. Maya felt a deep, overwhelming sense of pride and relief. The confrontation had ended, but the lesson, the proof, and the memory of this moment would stay with her forever. That evening, as the sun set, Maya sat beside her mother, exhausted but exhilarated. She reflected on everything, the mockery, the doubt, the fear, the suspense, and realized that she had grown stronger through it all. She understood courage in a new way, saw the value of patience, and had witnessed the undeniable power of truth. The confrontation had not been violent, but it had been transformative. And in her heart, she knew that the days of ridicule and disbelief were over. Maya's journey from doubt to revelation, from fear to pride, had reached its climax. She had faced the unknown, the mockery, the authority, and had emerged stronger, braver, and more certain than ever before. And while the future still held uncertainties, she knew one thing for sure: with her mother by her side, and the truth on her side, there was nothing she could not face. The evening settled quietly over the neighborhood, the air still heavy with the echoes of the day's events. Maya sat on the couch, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, still trembling from the adrenaline of what had just happened. The mockery, the ridicule, the fear, it all felt distant now, replaced by something far stronger: relief, pride, and an overwhelming sense of safety. Her mother sat beside her, calm yet powerful, radiating a quiet strength that seemed to fill the entire room. For the first time, Maya allowed herself to exhale fully. The tension that had gripped her for days slowly melted away. She realized she had been carrying more than just a secret. She had been carrying the weight of doubt, the fear of disbelief, and the sting of judgment. But now, all of that had been confronted, and all of it had been overcome. The officers, who had mocked and doubted her, were gone, leaving only the undeniable truth behind. Maya turned to her mother, her eyes wide with emotion. "I was so scared, Mom," she whispered. "But I never stopped believing you." Elena smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Maya's face. "And that belief," she said softly, "is what made you strong. Courage isn't just about physical strength, it's about holding on to the truth, even when no one else will. You did that." Maya felt tears stream down her cheeks, a mixture of relief, pride, and gratitude. She had faced the mockery, the fear, and now she had witnessed the power of truth firsthand. The house felt warmer, safer, filled with a quiet understanding that everything had changed. Maya realized that she had grown in ways she hadn't anticipated. She had learned patience, the importance of belief, and the courage to face challenges that seemed impossible. The ridicule at school, the whispers, the laughter, they were no longer threats. They were memories, reminders of a journey that had tested her, shaped her, and ultimately made her stronger. Elena reached over and took Maya's hand, squeezing it gently. "You've seen today what happens when the truth is revealed. People may doubt, people may mock, but the truth always finds its way. And you, my brave girl, you've been part of that truth. You've shown courage, even when you were scared." Maya nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. She had always admired her mother, but now she understood the depth of her strength, the power of her resolve, and the importance of believing in what is right. Outside, the neighborhood had returned to its quiet routine, but the events of the day would not be forgotten. People whispered among themselves, sharing what they had seen, understanding now that Maya and her mother were extraordinary. The power of truth, courage, and skill had been undeniable, leaving a lasting impression on everyone who had witnessed it. That night, Maya lay in bed, reflecting on the day. She thought about the fear she had felt, the ridicule, the uncertainty, and realized how far she had come. The suspense and tension that had haunted her for days were gone, replaced by a sense of empowerment. She knew now that the world could doubt her, could mock her, but the truth, and the courage to uphold it, was hers to carry. As she drifted off to sleep, Maya felt a deep sense of gratitude for her mother, for the lessons she had learned, and for the strength that had been awakened within her. She had faced fear, ridicule, and disbelief, and she had emerged stronger, braver, and more certain than ever before. The journey had been difficult, filled with suspense and uncertainty, but it had led to a moment of clarity and empowerment that would stay with her forever. Maya's story, once filled with mockery and doubt, had become a story of courage, truth, and triumph. She knew that life would continue to present challenges, but she also knew that with belief, patience, and strength, she could face anything. The emotional aftermath of the confrontation had left her transformed, and she understood now that the most powerful force in the world is not mockery, doubt, or fear, it is the truth, and the courage to stand by it. And so, with her mother by her side and the knowledge of her own strength, Maya closed her eyes and slept peacefully for the first time in days, ready to face the world with a heart full of courage, a mind full of clarity, and a spirit unshakable in the face of any challenge.